While the Age of Empires progressed, all forms of life, ranging from these spacefaring forces to single-celled organisms, all existed as but one version of themselves within our universe. Beyond this resided the multiverse, a massive interweaving of realities. While some of these universes were identical to our own, others differed greatly. If the legends of old are to be believed, at the beginning of all things, before the formation of the first universe, there existed the one above all as the supreme creator, as well as Nemesis. Possessing control over space, time, the soul, reality, the mind, and pure power, as the sole entity in existence, Nemesis fell into a state of loneliness and despair, electing to end its own life. Dispersing its energies in their entirety, Nemesis gave birth to the multiverse, planting within each universe 6 singular gems containing a portion of its power. Traveling back to our universe, as the empires of various races grew and were replaced, the universe was being explored by the Phoenix Force. Unlike the traditional cosmic entities of Eternity, Infinity, Galactus, and others, the Phoenix Force did not contain different iterations of itself across the multiverse. Instead, despite the existence of infinite universes within the multiverse, there existed only one Phoenix Force. Representing the total sum of all future life born through the multiverse itself, the Phoenix Force existed with immense power, serving as a nexus for all psychic energy that has ever, currently does, or will ever exist. Initially existing as a formless mass of energy, while we don't know what the Phoenix was doing in the early days of the universe, what we do know is that in a universe wildly different from our own, a being named Necrom had come to understand the power of the Phoenix. Operating as that universe's Sorcerer Supreme, Necrom had taken advantage of the Phoenix Force's lack of experience in dealing with deception. Manipulating the Phoenix into building pillars across the multiverse, Necrom intended to converge all realities into a singularity, forcing a collapse of the multiverse and absorbing the energies emitted by its death, transforming him into a god. However, the schemes of Necrom were discovered by his students, and while he was defeated, the Phoenix went forward, operating largely within our universe and seeking to better understand the minds of mortal creatures. With the threat of Necrom reaching the ears of almost all beings across the multiverse, an individual of unknown origin named Merlin had come to the conclusion that the various realities of the multiverse needed a means of observation and protection against such a threat. Confining himself to a pocket dimension outside of all space and time known as Otherworld, Merlin set about creating the Omniversal Development Court, a governing body designed to observe the development of each universe within the multiverse and ensure their safety. Traveling back to our universe, while the planet Zen-La remained in isolation from the various empires and forms of life, their position in the cosmos was about to radically change. On the far side of reality, Galactus continued his role as the Devourer of Worlds and found that his hunger was growing. Traversing the cosmos and coming upon Zen-La as one of the many worlds rich in life-supporting energy, Galactus intended to consume Zen-La. However, at the behest of one of its citizenry, Zen-La's execution was stayed. Born to the brilliant scientist Joran, who encouraged his son to pursue knowledge, advancement, and achievement, unlike everybody else on Zen-La who saw Galactus coming as their guaranteed end, Norn Rad saw hope. Petitioning Zen-La's Science Council to grant him a vessel, Norn Rad struck a pact with Galactus. With the Devourer of Worlds becoming increasingly weaker due to having to search out his own sustenance, if Galactus spared Zen-La, Norn Rad would abandon his home and serve as Galactus' herald, traveling the universe in search of suitable planets. Agreeing to these terms, Norn Rad was transformed into the Silver Surfer, who in turn would locate planets capable of satiating Galactus' hunger, but lacking sentient life. With the Silver Surfer serving his purpose, back in our solar system, the destiny of Thanos was beginning. As the son of Alars, an Eternal from Earth, Thanos was, at his core, human. But with both Eternals and Deviants stemming from the human gene, unlike those around him on Titan, Thanos was born with both Eternal and Deviant genes, making him a mutant among his own race. However, unlike Alars, who considered Thanos a worthy successor to the Eternal throne, Thanos' mother, Suisan, saw him as the death of them all. Initially trying to kill her son on birth, while Suisan was stopped by Alars, her claims of impending doom at the hands of Thanos led to her incarceration within a mental institution. Spending his childhood as a pacifist, Thanos kept largely to himself, playing only with his brother Eros. However, After encountering a fellow student, her manipulations began to see the views of Thanos shifting from non-aggression to obsession with nihilism and death. Encouraged by his family to develop friends, the young Thanos was tricked into visiting a cave alongside several other students. Experiencing a cave-in, Thanos was forced to bear witness as his friends were consumed by lizards. Forced to return to a life of isolation, the young girl persuaded Thanos to drop his pacifist nature, returning to the cave and killing the lizards. Following this, and at the behest of the young girl, Thanos began kidnapping various creatures from around his city, initiating a series of grisly experiments that killed them, but enabled Thanos to better understand the natural physiology of organisms in his search to understand why he was physically different from everyone else. Continuing along this path, by his teenage years and after expanding his experiments to his own race, Thanos had murdered 17 individuals, many of whom were his own classmates. Failing to find his answers, the more Thanos engaged in murder, the more his focus shifted from research to desire, after which he abandoned Titan and took to exploring the stars. While the path of Thanos would lead him inexorably towards his fate, back on Earth, the Elder Gods refused to be forgotten. After spending 3 billion years in isolation, a handful of Elder Gods sought to use mankind as a means to ensure their legacy. Coming together in the form of the Octessence, the Elder Gods Watum, Balthak, Ekon, Farala, Sidorak, Kraken, Ragador, and Voltar came together for a test to determine the strongest member among them. Creating an artifact of their own design, those humans who continue to worship the Elder Gods built tombs housing these artifacts. Sealing the tombs and sacrificing their lives, these items would remain until one was touched by human hands, after which humanity would be drawn to the remaining 7, and those that acquired them would lead humanity in a war against itself. While time would see the passing of 4,000 years before this prophecy would be fulfilled, with the existence of these artifacts remaining hidden, the ancient mutant Apocalypse was beginning his reign. Following his escape from the confines of Egypt, Apocalypse went forward throughout the world, pitting various civilizations against one another as a means to eliminate the weak from the strong. During this time, and in the 15th century, Insa-Ba-Nur had fancied himself a warlord, building an army of the strongest fighters from those civilizations he had conquered, and christening them the Riders of the Dark. Using the Riders to conquer more territories, the life of Insa-Ba-Nur and the future of the world was changed irrevocably with the arrival of Nathan Dayspring. Hailing from 4,500 years in the future, Cable, from the time of his adolescence, knew only of a world ruled by Apocalypse. Imposing his philosophy of social Darwinism, under the rule of Apocalypse, Earth had become a cruel and brutal place, where the weak were eliminated to make way for the strong. Intending to keep his future from coming into fruition, Cable traveled into the past under the guise of the Traveler, intending to end Apocalypse before he could seize power. However, during Insa-Ba-Nur's travels, he had encountered a ship left behind by the Celestials during their experiments on early man. Unable to access its technology during his original encounter, Apocalypse greeted Cable as an enemy, with the two doing battle against one another. While Cable proved himself the victor, his cybernetic blood merged with Apocalypse, allowing him to communicate with the ship. Striking a pact with one of the Celestials, Apocalypse was granted use of their technology and went forward with a host of new powers, hell-bent on world domination. Bearing witness to the fruits of his labor, Cable was forced to come to recognize that he himself was the being responsible for engineering Apocalypse's rise to power.
The most important thing that I always tried to do was concentrate on the characters. Even before I would dream up the story, I would try to think, who are the characters? What are their personalities? What type of people are they? And why should a reader care about them? Why should a reader be interested in them? To me, the same thing holds for movies, television. You've got to have characters that the audience, the viewer, the reader cares about. Once you do that, making up stories is easy. The serious themes that I would occasionally inject were for another reason. I began to realize, judging by the fan mail that we received, I began to realize that our books had quite an influence on the readers. And I kind of took that seriously. I felt if these people are reading my words and the words of the other writers working for Marvel, I felt we've got to be careful and we've got to make sure that we're not giving them the wrong messages.